and Morty has changed since its first 2 seasons. Seasons 3, 4, and 5 were all worse than the previous season, and thankfully that trend has ended with Season 6. Season 6 gave me hope that the show would be more consistent in quality from now on. While there aren't really any super great episodes that even Seasons 3 to 5 had, the episodes overall are pretty good, and I wouldn't say any of them are straight up bad. But that's not why you're here. You clicked this video because you want to see me talk about the worst episode in Rick and Morty. But which one is it? You probably didn't think, as it's pretty obvious. There are actually 2 episodes I consider the worst, and these episodes are Season 4, Episode 4, Claw and Hoarder Special Rick Tim's Morty, and Season 5, Episode 4, Rickdependence Spray. God damn, these episode titles are terrible. Like, does every episode title need to be a reference to something? Especially if you make them all have Rick in the title, which makes it annoying to remember which episode is which. But back on topic, I'm going to cover the episode I think is by far the worst in Rick and Morty, Rickdependence Spray, also known as the sperm episode. You'll find many people talking about this episode online. It's got the lowest IMDb rating of any episode, with 5.7 out of 10 stars and 13,000 ratings. This is especially bad as even Suicide Squad has a slightly higher score with a 5.9 out of 10. Now that should tell you something. Even if you just search worst Rick and Morty episode on Google, you'll see plenty of people mention this one. How bad could this episode possibly be if fucking Suicide Squad has a better rating? Wait, I already said that. First, let's do a brief summary of the episode. This is going to be as brief as I can make it, so I'm going to leave out some stuff. It starts with Morty and Beth at a horse hospital, with Morty being bored until he sees a horse jerk-off machine. Since Morty is fucking gross, he uses the jerk-off machine to, well, jerk him off. It cuts to a week later when Morty sees Rick pushing a barrel of horse sperm into his garage in order to make a bioweapon to use against a never seen or mentioned before or after race of underground horse people called the Chuds. Rick decides not to check if it's actually horse sperm just because Morty tells him to not check it. This results in the sperm apocalypse, where giant sperms fly around and kill people. Rick here is, let's just say, weird for now, and doesn't suspect Morty at all, even though Morty is as convincing as Jared Leto is a good Joker. Yeah, I brought up Suicide Squad again. This results in the family going to Washington and meeting the president. The president 100% believes Morty when he says Rick has nothing to do with it. Rick and Morty head to the Grand Canyon because haha vagina. Here they see the sperm are more intelligent than they thought and they get captured. A sperm Morty saved earlier rescues them, and Morty confesses to the president that it was his sperm after they learn about Summer's plan to use a giant egg, which is hers, to lure the sperm. Rick and Morty get captured by the previously mentioned underground horse people, where they're saved by the princess horse that Rick slept with and got pregnant. This ends with the century-long war of humans versus horse people, and the horse people come above ground to help stop the sperm apocalypse. This ends with the sperm Morty saved getting to the egg, and the result getting launched into space. Rick decides to settle down with the horse princess, who gives birth. The baby immediately goes underground and the princess just says bye and leaves. I don't have an avatar that I can have cross its arms in pure anger, so just deal with my skull here. But yeah, this summary should give you an idea of just how bad this episode is. I'll start with Rick. Rick is super out of character for this episode. For some reason, he just doesn't question Morty at all. The most he does is when he just asks, "What do you have at stake here?" and then just goes on to listen to Morty anyways. In any other episode, he wouldn't just do this. He would test the sperm anyways just to spite Morty. He psychologically fucked with Morty after Morty calls his idea stupid, and after it blows up in his face, he literally says, "I blame myself unless there was something about the sperm I didn't know." Like, come on, really? And then with Morty acting suspicious as all hell, Rick is just like, "Well, nothing wrong here. You're telling me the guy who can kill the universe's biggest threat in one night while drunk, create a society in a day, and masterfully manipulate a group of alien scammers with advanced technology into thinking they beat him, can't tell when somebody he knows is obviously lying?" And I get that Morty's obvious lying is played up for laughs. It's supposed to be funny that he's obviously lying and everybody believes him, but it's not. It just makes you question why the hell Rick is acting that way. It's kind of mentioned when Morty asks Rick if he's messing with him, but you can't just make Rick act out of character, then point it out and be like, "Yeah, see, we know he's not acting right, but that makes it okay." It's just so weird to me because the episode could have worked just fine, well, fine is a strong word, if Rick wasn't a dumbass. The threat of the sperm is still there. It doesn't serve any purpose for Rick to be unaware. The other characters I can get not knowing. They have no way of knowing it was actually Morty's spunk if Rick or Morty didn't tell them. The part where the president 100% believes Morty no matter what was a bit weird, but I think it's fine. I'm not even going to mention Rick just immediately accepting to settle down with the princess horse, because that's not really out of character in my opinion. I can totally see him just saying that then running off. I mean, the episode ends with him pressing a button that says that was easy, so I doubt he actually wanted to stay with the horse. For some reason, the writers thought it would be a great idea to shove a message about sexism into a plot about giant sperm killing people. And like, okay, I guess you can probably make it work, but it doesn't. Every single time sexism is brought up, it is just as subtle as a jet engine. Does that make sense? Anyways, you get what I mean. At one point, Beth literally says, "You ready for all the responsibility and none of the credit?" Look, I actually don't mind the feminist messaging or whatever. I'm sure it could have worked, even if the main plot is about giant killer sperm. But could you at least give it a little subtlety? And again, it's supposed to be funny, but it's not. Like, what's the joke here? Summer says idea. Everybody hears her and dismisses the idea. Guy says same idea, and everybody praises him and gives him the credit. I guess that maybe this could be referring to how society likes to hear feminist talking points more if it comes from a man, but I don't think that's the case. Also, they're talking about goddamn giant killer sperm, so nobody's going to take half-ass messaging seriously when you got a main plot as stupid as that. It's not like I don't think Rick and Morty can tackle serious issues, because I actually think they can do it pretty well when they try. One of my favorite episodes does just that. It tackles issues such as stereotypes and expectations of people due to what they are. The whole episode is a criticism of modern society, such as the Ricks having equal IQs, yet there are still Ricks with higher power over the other Ricks, and Mortys that Ricks don't take seriously just because they're Mortys. There's a lot of criticism here, and you know why nobody complains? Not just because it's subtle, because frankly some of it isn't, such as the criticism of the ruling class, but also because it's entertaining. The premise of the episode is of a teenage boy using a horse jerk-off machine and creating giant killer sperm and a plan to stop the sperm by the government using one of his sister's eggs and making it giant, which leads to a giant incest baby. Does this sound funny? No? Well, then the episode isn't funny. The whole episode is just gross equals funny, but it's at a place where it's not really gross. Sure, horse jerk-off machine and giant sperm and giant incest baby are all gross things. But in animation? Nah, not really. The idea alone isn't enough to sell it to me. The episode relies on you feeling at least a little grossed out, but it doesn't do enough to try and actually gross you out. It has gross concepts, but that's it. They introduce this tribe of underground horse people that have been at war with humans for centuries with a quick throwaway line like they've always been there. The episode ends with the horse people ending the war and helping the humans kill all the sperm. This is supposed to be funny that we never hear of them, but the characters suddenly act like they've always been there. But that's been done already. This is how Mr. Poopy Butthole got introduced into the show. He just showed up in Total Recall, the episode with the memory parasites, and he's shown up again, although mostly in the after credits of the finales of seasons 2 onward. My issue with the horse people is basically that it just isn't funny, and it's used to resolve the conflict. Mr. Poopy Butthole was used as a twist at the end of Total Recall in that he wasn't a parasite. He didn't really add anything else to the episode. The horse people are only there to resolve the conflict of the episode and as a callback to a line Rick mentioned earlier. Honestly, I think it would have been funnier if they kept the line about getting the sperm to make a bioweapon, but then never bring it up again. But like I said, it's not really a huge problem. Again, it's just not funny. You know what is a big problem? The incest baby. The writers of the show knew people wanted more serialized episodes, but for some reason they were really against it. They had Rick spout off nonsense about hating canon and wanting to do episodic adventures. In season 5, they tried to use canon to fuck with the viewers. They made the incest baby, the fucking incest baby canon. And not just like you saw him in the background. No, he played a part in the episode Gotron Jerry Sis Rick Evangeline, where he is used to solve the conflict at the end of the episode. It's really weird they did this, especially because the episode after Gotron, Jerry Sis, Rick Evangelion, goddamn stupid episode names, is a super canon episode that reveals parts of Rick's backstory to us. So why the hell did they bring the incest baby back? It's basically just the writer saying, you want some serialization or canon? Fuck you, you get incest baby. Thankfully, the writers or whoever have changed their tune about having any serialization, but the fact that they were so against it despite fans wanting it is just wild. Okay, if they wanted to keep the show purely episodic, do that. Don't yell at your audience and say you don't care what they want, just do it in silence. The problem isn't wanting to keep Rick and Morty episodic, as the majority of episodes are episodic and are pretty good. The problem is telling your audience to go fuck themselves because you don't want any more canon. And then to have the balls to make the fucking incest baby canon, damn, that is so stupid. You know what? Maybe the incest baby being canon isn't a fuck you to the audience. Maybe it's just because the writers really really like to bring up incest, but that's mainly in season 6. Maybe the incest baby was testing the waters for how much incest they could put in the show. You may have noticed I said it's not funny a few times throughout the video, and that's because the worst part about this episode is the lack of funny. This might be the only episode where I never even cracked a smile. Now, I don't usually burst out laughing when watching TV, but I usually will at the very least smile at the jokes I see. Now, I don't think you're stupid or whatever if you did think the episode was funny. That's fine. Comedy is subjective after all, but I just did not think anything in the episode was funny. I think the pure concept alone is supposed to save the jokes, but again, the concept itself isn't funny enough to do that. I'll just end this part off here because comedy is subjective. This episode, while still pretty bad, is still probably better than some shows out there. Definitely better than some, or maybe even most, Family Guy episodes. Speaking of Family Guy, stay tuned to my next video for some Peter Griffin funny moments. If I had to sum up why it's bad as briefly as possible, it's an episode about giant sperm. What did you expect?